I am a reluctant Zionist. I would love to see the day when I would say, okay, you know what? There's no reason for there to be a Jewish state any more than there's any reason for there to be any state for any group, as opposed to just states that protect individual rights and nothing else. Certainly, not a state where, I would say there's an exemption there for certain things that are yeah, I can accept from Israel and can't accept from other countries, like restrictions on immigration and so on. Um, Unfortunately, there is a need for a Jewish state, and at the moment, and that need is created by the fact that Jews are, as a group, are targeted. Um, we talked about the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson and the disgusting, despicable reactions that you see out there. And if you go on social media and scroll through any account, click on any account that is celebrating that murder and the murderer, scroll through it, you are very likely to find some support for the Palestinians because what people are celebrating in the case of the murder of Brian Thompson is the fact that somebody successful has been killed. And if you are and has been killed by somebody not successful. Um and People who think that that is a good thing to do for, the greater good, whatever that is, on an individual basis, would also think that and would think that probably more strongly on a group basis because they uh, are collectivists. And if you hate success and successful groups, the group you were most likely to hate are the Jews. They are at least perceived, for better or worse, as the successful group, as I don't know, more intelligent or whatever. Again, for better or worse, but by people who hate Jews and by Jews themselves. This is the perception and this is the idea. Um, and yeah, that's why when you have people who celebrate violence, who celebrate attacks on anybody who is successful, they tend to like attacks on Jews. Some such people, since ideas are not innate and they're not uh, given to you based on your group, but they are your choice. Some such people are also Jews. One such person, this is an ongoing informal series here on this channel, Jews Who Hate Jews. One such person is Zachary Foster, a historian of Palestine. And we're going to look at some of his stuff, but generally speaking, the reason I am a Zionist, the reason I see a need for the state of Israel is because people like Zachary Foster exist, and people like Zachary Foster have an audience, are prominent. He is, he's not some random person that nobody listens to. He does actually, uh, have some influence. Um, should we start with a tweet from Zachary Foster, which is actually what I saw when I thought let's do a whole episode on him. This is a tweet of his from 3 days ago. Israel is eradicating Judaism. Israeli soldiers have turned the Star of David into a symbol of hate. They've branded this symbol onto the faces of Palestinians and spray painted it on their destroyed homes. Israeli settlers cite Jewish texts and scriptures as they terrorize Palestinians in the West Bank, while Israeli soldiers chant Jewish prayers like the Shema as they eradicate Palestinian existence in Gaza. Israeli politicians claim the Jewish God promised them Gaza, Judea, and Samaria, while state-appointed rabbis in Israel provide religious justification for genocide. Thanks, Israel, for robbing me of my identity and religion. Yes, this is a ongoing thing with anti-Semitic Jews. They like to remind you that they're Jews. We know this from Norman Finkelstein, who we've spoken about multiple times. But yeah, this is part of the whole spiel. Anyway, welcome to the reality show. I'm joined by Marco, Richard, and Alejandro. Alejandro, what are your thoughts on that tweet, on Zachary Foster in general?
Well, I don't know him, and this was the first time I was presented to this person. I think the tweet reveals, I would say, sheer dishonesty. I don't think that you can be fully honest and state such thing, especially in the way that it's put. I think the proper way in which you could conceive is that there are certain kind of people that have wrong ideas inside Israel, and that they maybe not be having the best way to frame the the issue, and certainly I object to religion, and that's really bad. To believe that they are the majority, and to believe that this isn't a war that was started by the same Palestinians. That, I mean, the sheer number of things that we have discussed here in the past. Um, I mean, you cannot be honest and say that. And a secondary issue is, look at that whole tribalistic way of framing things. Uh, like, yes, imagine that everything he says is true at the beginning of the tweet. Why does the second part follow? Like, imagine that a certain group of Jews is really bad. Or does that speak ill of you? Does that rob you of your identity in any way? I think only if you believe in tribalism, in the whole notion that your identity, your validation, your nature as a human being is based on the good or evil of a tribe that you associate to, you can believe that such things.
Yeah, and of course he does believe in tribalism. Richard.
Yeah, I think first of all, let's take you mentioned Finkelstein there in the course of your intro. I mean, Finkelstein has been set up as a role model for the kind of people that this Zachary Foster is emulating, isn't he? That there is a type of a Jew, a type of academic Jew who wants to either in lieu of making a proper argument or having a proper set of values, to make a case or make a career or simply make a commotion out of both stressing their Jewishness and rejecting it at the same time. I noticed that in one of his, I think this guy's got a YouTube channel, and one of his pieces, he's a graduate of Princeton, and he's burning his Princeton diploma. And that's the same thing. You want the prestige of having been to Princeton, and you want the prestige of rejecting Princeton, and yet you're not rejecting it because you refer to it constantly in the same way that you refer to the fact that you're Jewish constantly, whilst claiming you reject it in terms of your attitude to what it means. And it's this case of seeing everything in a group as a group dynamic as a primary, and you as an individual and what your values are well below that. And when they want to they want to change the group, the entire group, to fit what they think are the values that group ought to have. So it's a very dogmatic position to take, and it's a very false way of looking at things. So I think this guy is by no means unique in that sense, but it's depressing to see younger people following in this route. And of course, we also know that they're following in this route because of their teachers at Princeton have kind of taught them to do this, even whilst they're burning those diplomas. The teachers of Princeton have taught you to burn your Princeton diplomas and to crow about it. So what a nihilistic outcome it is at the end of all that.
If you ever needed a reminder that the value of PhDs and degrees in Western university is really disappeared. I mean, just think this guy is a PhD in Palestinian history or history of Palestine or something like that, which is equivalent to having a degree in Gotham City or Metropolis or something like that. It's a made-up degree which only furthers the kind of argument that come from this kind of people. Now, yeah, it's a tragedy that there are teachers that taught him. That he had even somebody who supported him during the PhD period. But the tragedy is that he is now a teacher himself. He teaches this kind of idiotic, cretinous ideology that he thinks he believes in. And the problem with this guy is that he's going to be used because of his burnt degree from Princeton as a source, an authoritative source about Palestinian lies and, you know, any Arab or pro-Hamas or lefty paper like The Guardian, for example, the BBC or Al Jazeera, or whoever, will use this guy and mention it as a proof that what the lies that they've been telling are true. And just looking at this tweet that we're talking about, I mean, the guy is a knucklehead, so it bodes well for anyone who wants to get a PhD nowadays. Really, I mean, the kind of stuff we've brought. I mean, Israeli soldiers have turned the Star of David into a symbol of hate. How? Doesn't tell you that. They branded the symbol onto the face of Palestinians. Is effectively saying, you know, Israeli soldiers are violently dealing with Palestinians. He talks about their destroyed home. Why are their homes destroyed? You know, as Israel suddenly decide out of the blue to destroy the houses of the Palestinians? Clearly not. There is a reason why. The reason is specifically October the 7th and the action that the innocent poor Palestinian took on that very day, the butchering, and the fact that, you know, you talked earlier on in the TDO about it, but the fact that they're still holding hostages, the innocent Palestinians. So to ignore all this, to drop all this massive context related to what he says, it's just pure evil. I mean, the guy is not total imbecile. You know, he might be a knucklehead, but it's not a total idiot. I mean, he's got enough knowledge at his fingertip, or at least ability to get to it, to know that what he's saying is actually false. And as Alejandro pointed out, I mean, he's just lying. He's just using his made-up authority to make up lies, which then will be broadcasted by the other so-called authoritative institutions.
Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Alejandro, your point about if the first part is true, what about the why does the second part follow? And again, does it also follow for any group? Because you can find bad people in any group. So you know, even you know, Muslims don't tell anyone. But you know, so can you apply that to the Arab world? You know, if let's say Arabs commit some sort of terrorist attack, like I don't know, if they fly planes into buildings, can we then say you know, Arabs are whatever, Arabs are the reason for the hatred of for Arabs? No, this is very unique to Jews, and what he is doing here is he is saying essentially you should hate Jews as a group. I don't know how else to read that tweet. I mean, that's what he is saying. He's saying you know, Israel is kind of with its actions and its association with Judaism or being Jewish is essentially saying, okay, this is what it is to be Jewish. Therefore, because it's bad, you should you know, hate these people. Daniel tells us here in the Zoom chat that he got a PhD in Near Eastern Studies. He's Zachary Foster, not Daniel. His dissertation was The Invention of Palestine. Okay. I mean, yeah. I kind of doubt. I think the invention of Palestine is an interesting thing to study. I kind of doubt that he was honest, any more honest in his dissertation than he was in that tweet. I would guess it's something, I don't know if you've seen the tweet. There was a tweet by Bear Grylls talking about Jesus being a Palestinian refugee, something like that. So that might have been what was in there, but I haven't read it, nor do I intend to. But yeah, Alejandro.
I don't know. Maybe the invention of Palestine is patented, maybe copyrighted. Uh, well, what else can I say? I think one of the worst things that I've seen in this over the last year and a half, it's especially since October 7th, is the sheer amount of people that really, in the worst circumstances and in the most horrific events, they place themselves on on the the real evil side. It's been uh, an experience that has allowed me to see how and where we are as a culture. Because I think the interesting thing here is that people aren't hedging. People who support and condone the whole Palestinian anything, especially Hamas and so on, and and their whole way of framing things without hedging themselves, it really reveals that people can now go full on the side of people. And anyways, what I was trying to say is one of the sad things about joining here is that I've been presented with this kind of people with a face and a voice. I always knew that they existed, but to know that they have some sort of prominence, some sort of standing, let it be at even with a PhD at I don't know which university was it, but it's really distressing.
Princeton, that's a prestigious university. By the way, my apologies for imposing this on you. I'd say I'm not going to do it again, but we both know that's not true. I was talking I was talking to Daniel in the morning, and I said the same thing. Like, why did I put myself through having to spend my day looking at this guy? But it is important. It is important to know who these people are because they are prominent, and they are relentless. Like there are many people whose full-time job it is to tell the world why they should hate the Jews, and of course they say it in words that are more marketable than that. But and we talk about them, and we'll continue to talk about them. Look, they're none of them are pleasant. They're unpleasant in different styles. Uh, Candace Owens has her style, and Owen Jones has his, and this guy also has his, and he has this addition of as a Jew. By the way, on that we have somebody in the chat who's saying this is not a well-written comment, so I'm gonna uh, do the Gillette ad thing and say what I think she's trying to say is. Isn't it kind of a groupthink to tell us what you have to think about Israel and the war, that they have to be pro-Israel because they're Jewish? This is very leftist thinking. Who said that? Nobody says you have to be pro-Israel because you're Jewish. You need to be pro-Israel because you're a decent human being, if you are a decent human being. And if you're not, maybe consider lifestyle change. Yeah, you know, this panel is mostly not people of Jewish descent and fully not people of the Jewish religion. And yeah, everybody here is pro-Israel. You can be too, and so can Zachary Foster. For him, I think it's a much longer journey. But a few days ago, I did the ARC UK Awards show with somebody who, at the age of 30, was a Marxist professor. So it's never too late. And yeah, try it. Richard.
Yeah, I mean, you started the show by talking about why you're a reluctant Zionist. And that's because you establish the values that you hold and why you hold them. And then you work up from there, isn't it? You don't take the fact that you're Jewish or not Jewish as the starting point and then determine everything from there. But the prevalence with which people think in terms of this pyramid of oppression and victimhood and where am I on it, or which pie chart do I fit in, or which group do I belong to, and therefore what am I told I think? No. You assess with your own mind your values, and therefore you work up from there. And the argument that you're making has to be based on being a solid argument, not on anything else. Anything else is frankly irrelevant. That is why, you know, me with my what's the Hebrew phrase? My goyish kopf. I can support Israel. And it's not, and I don't need to be Jewish in order to do so. I'm supporting Israel because of the values, the individual values in the region, to the extent that they support them within Israel, and of course the threat which those individual rights are being affected by the actions of the Palestinians and many of the Arab countries that surround Israel, and that is the key reason. So it's very clear that that this kind of group thinking, this tribalist nonsense, is so prevalent that people seem unable not to use it as the tool of their argument, the crutch on which their argument's based, or the colours in which they wrap themselves and their argument with. And all of those are irrelevant to the argument. The argument should stand on its own merits, based on the objective facts that you're analysing and you know and making a case from. That's where the truth lies.
If you are a reluctant Zionist, I am a bored Zionist. I'm bored by the proliferation of these wannabe Finkelsteins who see an opening coming up in the anti-Semitic industry. Of course, Finkelstein is about to pop off, so somebody young gets a PhD in something similar. He thinks, oh, I can perhaps get his place and write a few books for a few thousand anti-Semites. I can get the interviews. I can get attention on the pro-Hamas papers all over the world. So he probably goes for it. I mean, it is probably just a cynical calculation. And if you are a historian, it's quite unforgivable to fall down for this kind of, you know, fallacy of composition by taking a member of the group and building up the every Jew is evil, and on the other side, oh, look at this poor Palestinian is hungry because Ayn Rand hasn't given his weapons and his food yet, so all the Palestinians are hungry and waiting for food, ignoring the fact that, you know, you have two entities here. You have Israel, which builds tower blocks, skyscrapers, big infrastructure, big companies. And on the other side, you have the innocent Palestinians who, despite getting lots and lots of billions from the international community, choose to spend it by digging holes in the ground, which are not even sewers, are actually tunnels where people can hide hostages, can commit murders, can build weapons to use them to destroy the other side, Israel. And then they cry foul when Israel bombs them back, and because of the obvious might that Israel has in virtue of its freedom, in virtue of its productivity, is able to inflict on the poor Palestinians who still cry foul and decide to keep again the hostages without surrendering, because they're oppressed people, so that they indulge in keeping slaves and using them as monetary exchange in exchange for criminals. So, you know, to ignore all this kind of dynamics is just pure utter evil. And what's even worse, as we mentioned earlier on, this guy has got a following, limited at this point, but you can guarantee that as soon as the media out there pick up his name, understand who he's standing for, i.e. on the side of the murderers and the rapists and the hostage takers, they will give him space, and they will eventually hail him as the new academic who knows lots about Palestinian. And if he says so, Israel must be bad. Same old story.
Alejandro, what is University of American Samoa? Is that where he got his PhD?
No, it's just a reference to Breaking Bad.
Oh, I haven't seen it, but I have watched a lot of wrestling, and some great wrestlers came from Samoa. Some of whom I'd love to see in the ring with Zachary Foster. Yeah, wrestling is scripted, but maybe they can throw out the script for that one. Kidding. I'm not advocating for violence. Unlike Zachary Foster, that's not what I'm for. Yeah, Alejandro.
Just let me comment a bit on something that Marco was saying. He was saying that Israel has brought big companies, big business, big industry, big science, while Palestine has brought essentially destruction and tunnels. And I think that's essentially what's driving behind a lot of the hatred and a lot of the mirage of support from the left and some of the right as well. Mainly because if building and leveraging on the idea of altruism, the notion that if you have something and someone needs what you have, then you should do it or give it away. Clearly, Israel isn't doing that. Palestine needs food, Palestine needs electricity, Palestine needs whatever they need, and they aren't able to provide it by themselves. Well, Israel is capable of doing it. If you believe in the current morality, if you believe in the notion that whomever needs, whomever should get, then you should be right on that track. But that's an evil ideology. That's an evil way of perceiving things. That's a way, the way in which you put people at odds, and that's a way in which you put people's self-esteem at odds with themselves. And in essence, it's a way of making people live in death, as well as countries. So if you want to challenge everything that people who object to Israel, if you want to challenge them, in essence, on what they are talking about, try to challenge them on what they see as a good. Yeah.
Thank you, Loresetto, for the super chat. Loresetto says, advert, rock throwing is now fully digital, monetizable, and perfectly safe. No degree necessary. Order now. Yeah, speaking of adverts, I mentioned the did I mention, who mentioned? One of us mentioned the dissertation that that Zachary Foster wrote. No, it wasn't me. But yeah, if anybody wants to read that, I don't know if it's available. Maybe it is. Go ahead and look it up. But there might be better ways to spend your time, better things to read. Richard.
Yeah, one such better thing to read would be Jim Brown's book, A Black Hole in Economics, Money Creation and Its Consequences, which is sponsoring all of the reality shows in December, including this one, and we're very grateful to that. Now, let me tell you a bit about it. Not only does A Black Hole in Economics flip on its head, this is actually our review that Marco and I wrote, having read the book. So not only does this book flip on its head what we thought we knew about money creation, it reveals the consequences of turning the modern financial system into a government planning agency. Because Jim Brown, he cuts through the complexity of money creation with remarkable clarity. He exposes the truth about the harmful effects of government involvement in money creation and arms the individual investor against its worst effects. It is brilliant and vital reading. And we're grateful also to Jim Brown for the fact that all royalties from this book are going to support us here at the Ayn Rand Centre UK. So we properly recommend that you check it out, and it's available on Kindle and paperback. So please do that. Now, just to return to the tweet that we referred to earlier of Zachary Foster, there's no neat way of turning from Jim Brown to a hideous tweet, but I'm just going to do a handbrake turn and go straight to it. In it, of course, he was referring to several things which I think are quite telling. Not only the fact that let's look at the symbolism that he mentions in the first paragraph, because I do notice how much that people without an argument like to substitute a symbol, create a symbol, and then have it represent a whole bunch of stuff that they've attributed to it in lieu of an argument. So he's suddenly turning the Star of David into a symbol of hate and declaring that it now represents that. I mean, for me, they've ruined the symbol of, or the existence of, the fruit of the watermelon on the other side by attributing that to the Palestinian cause. But anyway, that's one aspect of it. And secondly, you've got the fact that they refer to religion and to God promising Gaza as the reason behind the entire attitude to Gaza, when it isn't. Admittedly, there are some people who are religious. There are some Jewish people who are religious, but who do purport to use that as the main reason. Although they're also probably, in many cases, using the individual rights argument, which we would support from a secular standpoint, because that's the one based on true values. But of course, you take that to represent the group, so you're very selective about what you represent as the group here. And of course, all the time, we're talking about somebody who is so keen to stress the group, so keen to use the fact that he's Jewish to criticize Judaism, in the same way that people are keen to talk about Western culture, use the freedom of speech that they have in Western culture to criticize Western culture, and essentially to argue for the annihilation of that freedom of speech. And of course, you've only got to consider the extent to which, on the other side of the coin, if you like, how many Muslims can actually reject Islam and live in many parts of the world when they're criticized, when they become apostates, their lives are actually at risk, because that's not a permitted course of action. And that's the counterpoint to the fact that Western culture is based on the values of freedom and freedom of speech and all of the things which underpin the rights of the individual to live their lives. And of course, those are the things you are arguing against at all of these different levels. And that's what makes it such a hideous stance to take.
And, continuing with the stupid tweet, the point where he says that Israeli politicians are using the Jewish God to provide religious justification for genocide. Well, bloody hell. I mean, okay, there are some politicians whose main push is a religious motivation and a religious background, fine. But you also ignore the fact that the whole state of Israel actually gives sanctuary to Arabs all over the place, gives sanctuary to Christians, to people from all over the place. It is a democracy. It's a civilized place where people from different faiths, and all the stuff that these leftists love, sexual diversity and color of skin, whatever diversity they can think of, is in Israel, is protected by Israel. So the essence of Israel is not that there are some politicians who come from a religious faction. And also, at the same time, it just sneaks in genocide. This is so telling. And when he says, "Thank you, Israel, for robbing me of my identity," well, I think he's made his identity quite clear. He's clearly an arsehole. Sorry, he's clearly an idiot who decided to use his own, as Richard pointed out, his own background as a tool to attack his own people. We're thinking in terms of people here. So he decided that Israel is bad. So he uses the fact that he has some connection to Israel, and effectively says, "Well, look at me, I'm unassailable," just like Finkelstein. I'm unassailable. I'm telling the truth because I belong to the group, and that in itself is a silly argument. And then, as an historian, the thing that really annoys me is the use of this kind of stories, this kind of criticizing Israel, and that's fine. Israel is absolutely not perfect. It's got lots of things that are rather changed. But then, when do you focus on the other side? When do you criticize the other side? When do you analyze what the other side is doing, has done, and will do if you let them alone to recover and do exactly what they've been promising? What's the nature of the other side? What are these Palestinians that you so much love and push for and protect and support? Have you read the Hamas Charter? Have you seen what they do? Do they protect the kind of diversity that you love so much and that Israel protects, but the other side doesn't? So, all this kind of let's criticize Israel, but ignore the other side, because obviously, if you compare the two, a blind man will actually see the difference and be able to make a moral judgment. If you ignore the other side, the Palestinian side, the Islamic ideology behind it, you just do it because you're morally corrupt and you decide that you don't want to make the moral judgment between the good Israel and the bad, the Islamic ones.
Yeah, by the way, I think apologizing for calling this guy an asshole is much worse than using that word, but I know we say we're
Christmas, I'm trying to be charitable.
I know we say we're a family-friendly show, but this episode is not family friendly. You don't want your kids knowing about this guy until, at the very least, you tell them the Santa isn't real. And yeah, we'll reopen that debate in about 360 days. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says, I'd love them to tell me when Palestine existed as a country. My ancient map book says Palestine was just a name for an entire region, including Judea, Syria, Lebanon, and what's now Jordan. So, well, yeah, those countries got rid of their Jews and those territories. The only place that's left to deal with is what is now Israel. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I wanted to mention that I opened his Twitter, and from an hour ago, there's a tweet. He's quote tweeting or posting a screenshot of a Hillel Fold tweet with a picture of a menorah, and Hillel Fold is saying, "What an incredible shot! Talk about turning darkness into light." A menorah made out of the rubble of a building, and then Zachary Foster says, what is more anti-Semitic than turning Jewish symbols into symbols of hate? So, yeah, Israel went into a territory that it went into only because savages slaughtered Jews, and is now trying to make light of it, light as in come out of the darkness, as Hanukkah is supposed to symbolize. But yeah, for this guy, the very fact that the Jews are not are in any way responding to the attempts to murder them is more proof that the Jews are evil. Look, there's some videos that I asked Daniel to I haven't seen any of them, but I asked Daniel to prepare some clips for us. Should we try and watch one and see where that takes us? I have to say this is from Zachary Foster's YouTube. There's every likelihood that if he gets wind of this, he will want it removed, which of course we will have to do on YouTube, not on X, where we also post the reality show. But yeah, if you see us talking and then us talking again and there's no clip in between, that's what happened. We will remove it if we have to. Anyway, yeah, let's watch what
This one is called Zionism is Destroying Israel.
In my opinion, the problem in Israel-Palestine is not Zionism. If all 13 million people between the river and the sea were Zionists, or if all 13 million people were anti-Zionists, you'd still have 90% of people in Gaza without safe drinking water and 5.5 million Palestinians in the West Bank who don't have the right to vote. You'd still have what the world's leading human rights organization, Human Rights Watch, recently called Jewish domination or Jewish supremacy, i.e. apartheid. So I'm against all ideologies that believe that ethnic or religious or linguistic or political groups have inherent or innate self-determination rights. I'm against all political movements, all political ideologies that hold that states ought to serve the interest of a single religious, ethnic, or linguistic group. I support political movements and political ideologies that include all religious, all linguistic, all ethnic groups. And so I guess that already makes me an anti-Zionist, because Zionism is all about Jewish self-determination and Jewish control. And so I'm an anti-Zionist for the same reason I'm against the Hutu power movement in Rwanda, or the Communist Party in China, or the white nationalists in the US, or the National Rally movement in France, or Sunni domination over Shia in Bahrain, or the domination of Arab nationalists in Sudan, or of the Alawite supremacy in Syria, or, of course, we can stick with Israel-Palestine itself, the Palestinian Islamist ideology in Gaza. All of these political ideologies, all these political movements hold that states should act as vehicles for the interests of a single group. And I think that has disastrous consequences wherever and whenever people believe that. I think Arabs and Nubians should have the same rights in Sudan. I think Hutus and Tutsis should have the same political rights in Rwanda. Whites and blacks should have the same political rights in the United States. Jews and Palestinians.
All right, we get the gist of it. Yeah, you did surprise me, Daniel. I asked you and you delivered. Yeah, I when he was saying that, I was waiting for him to say something about the Palestinians, and he did. The thing is, the Palestinians, follow through on their ideology and this aspect of it more than anyone else. It is them who are, murdering and who are the reason there's a war. This guy knows that Israel, unfortunately, only ever uses its military when it is attacked, and even then, not always. And even when it does, it's not fully, as we see, in different places, including Gaza, including basically we see it everywhere. Israel uses its military, goes out of its way to avoid civilian casualties, including at the cost of the legitimate goals of the military action. So, yeah. That was some good stuff there, except completely does not follow, or the rest of his stuff does not follow from that. Alejandro.
I was thinking about how to answer this, mainly because in the case that there is someone with an inch of honesty, I would make the real reply a bit more palatable, and just to that extent. I don't think this is an answer to Zachary. I think the only way that one should answer him is that he has been dishonest. I wouldn't engage in any kind of theoretical argumentation with him. But if there's someone honest that is semi-persuaded by that, I would say that Zionism as a concept is, I would say, a package deal. It has, on the one side, the thing that Rassi was talking about, a real vital need of the Jewish people to avoid being persecuted, violently being targeted. And they need to self-defense. They need some self-defense to a certain extent. And sometimes, not always, very rarely, that is mixed with the notion of the Jewish people needing a land on their own because the Bible needs it, or whatever, or because it's our tribe. There are certain people who believe that. But in essence, and to the extent that I know people from Israel, that's not the core part of the Israeli reason for existence and the Israeli way of living. Mixing up both of this is of such a kind of, is so dishonest and so clearly wrong, because yes, you could argue that Israel isn't perfect, but if you compare it to every single state in the Middle East, every single inch of land that you see over there is in a way much worse part. You have certain tribes that don't get their rights recognized, and more particularly, you don't get the rights of Jewish people being recognized in every single part of the Middle East. And if you don't think that that's an apartheid, or an abuse of those countries against Jewish people, and you don't say it in the whole video that you couldn't have that kind of framing or that kind of coexistence in those countries, you are not being honest. And I think that's it. And if you are, and people who might be confused by that statement, just take a look at the Middle East. Give it a taste and see how different Israel is from those countries.
Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says, Razi, he is a utopian. It seems I'm a utopian. I don't think what he's talking about is anyway. And we also have somebody in the chat saying Kurdistan got abandoned by Israel. Look, first of all, I can see reasons for Israel supporting the Kurds. I'm not, for me, there is an issue of kind of picking anybody who is against people that are fighting against you. I think maybe Israel should look closer into who they're supporting. But yeah, the Kurds would be the ones if anybody. But Israel's busy if you haven't noticed with other things. So yeah, anyway, Richard.
We've done different shows on this channel which show the different aspects of the Middle East. And I know that you did one in particular with Ayman, for example, who's demonstrating the fact that within the Arab world, there are many Arab groups who hate other Arab groups, and many countries and sects or whatever who hate each other, and they're only unified by their hatred of Israel. That's the only thing which unites them together. And of course, we're in the bamboozled list of examples that he gave there. He mentioned Sunnis and Shiites, for example, but he doesn't get into the Muslims who hate the Jews. That is one example absent from the list, and that is the dominant attitude among the Middle East region, because that's what unites even those groups that hate each other. But of course, that is a problem for him to put his finger on, and that's why he doesn't do it. And of course, what he's rejecting in all of this, what he's missing in all of this, is the fact that, as Ayn Rand pointed out, the smallest minority of all is the individual, and to keep constantly talking only in groups misses that crucial fact, misses the crucial fact about your own values and your own mind, and not taking those values because you compare your skin to the Dulux color chart, and that tells you what you're supposed to think, or the nation you were born in is supposedly, or it tells you what thoughts you are allocated from birth and must hold forevermore. I mean, all four of us were born in different countries on this planet. We have different aspects of the countries we were born in, which we agree with, which we disagree with. Many of us have lived in different parts of the world. Well, all of us have lived in different parts of the world. 3 of you do currently, to the one you were born in, and yet even the country you've moved to, obviously you don't necessarily agree 100% with all of the supposed attitudes that group identity is supposed to represent. And why? Because it's the values themselves and the basis of those values which is the most crucial factor. And I think people like this are constantly peddling, people like Zachary Foster constantly peddling the lie, frankly, that individuals cannot think for themselves and cannot make sensible choices based on properly assessing the real world out there, as opposed to blindly accepting what they're told, cajoled, or socially, forced into by bullying and ostracization into taking a particular viewpoint because it's the viewpoint they're supposed to hold because they fit into as a number in as part of a larger number.
And at the same time, Dr. Foster shows that he doesn't know and clearly doesn't care about the legitimacy of a government. A legitimate government protects individual rights. A illegitimate one is just the one that is created in order to foster whatever claim the group wants. In the case of the Palestinian, the destruction of Jews. So it's fine for him. To him, it's legitimate to have a Nazi state because you can have a Jewish state, and he makes this kind of comparison. A good government and a bad government to him are equal, morally equal. It doesn't matter if one exists to destroy, the other one exists to protects individual right. He doesn't care. But then again, if you see some of the article he's written, I mean, I just look at one just to see what kind of person he is. He wrote an article about how Israel has been supporting different groups in different countries throughout history. And it's like ignoring the fact, for example, that when Israel was providing weapons to the South African apartheid state, it was in the context of the Cold War. It was the USSR backing the ANC, and the civilized world, it's not a good thing to do, but backing the white government in South Africa. And so you had this kind of conflict throughout history, but to ignore the context of why Israel is taking one side around the other, it just use it to show that, oh, look at Israel, how bad it's providing weapons to the group or that group. Just ignoring who they are, what they stand for, and why they're there in the first place. It's just pure evil, purely decided to confuse the audience and trying to make them believe his point. But again, if you're as foolish as this guy is, you will fall for it. But if you care about finding out what's the moral value here, you wouldn't. That's why we come on the side of Israel.
Yeah, I wonder what he thinks of the current regime in South Africa and the people who support them. I don't know if, yeah, again, I've read limited stuff from this guy, so maybe, he did surprise me in that clip. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have time to see any more of his clips. I know that's heartbreaking, but thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says, you're a good utopian, though, Razi. Thank you, and I agree. And thank you, PC, for another super chat. PC says, a two-state solution will never happen. I agree with that as well. It's one or the other. Yeah, I hope it's the one that is currently in existence. Wow, okay, there's stuff in the chat that I wasn't able to read during the show, but yeah, look, back to the issue with the Kurds. Israel does need to defend itself from the savages that are surrounding it and not even surrounding it, but are firing from far away. That does need to be Israel's priority. And to the extent that Israel pays attention to what happens in Syria, it should be done in the way that it has been done so far since the fall of Assad and before, which is to make sure that they don't have the ability, whoever is there. Israel is basically getting Turkey on its border. It has a de facto border with Turkey now. That is a concern for Israel. And, if it goes in the direction of military action, then which doesn't seem like it is at the moment, then Israel can look towards potential allies. Parting thoughts, Alejandro, and I'm not going to ask where people can find you, but you can tell them if you want, or you can promote anything else you want to promote.
Yeah, I want to promote the 3 essays I've written so far in the Substack of the ARCUK UK. If you are interested in why I think Milei, even though it has a very good political agenda, there are some caveats that one should be looking at, especially his character. Or also, if you think why libertarianism is not for liberty, you can also read them under the Substack as well.
Richard, Marco, parting thoughts and anything you want to promote.
I think just as a parting thought, I just mentioned the appeal to authority that's all through all of his arguments here. And of course, it's a good chance to reference the course on a Sunday where we're analysing with James Valiant, or at least people who subscribe to the Ayn Rand Centre UK can look at the logic course with James Valiant, where we look at things like appeal to authority and how they're used, and the many, many different forms of argument which are used to distract from the fact that you don't have a coherent argument that's based on fact, but you're trying to distract from it. And appeal to authority is exactly what's being done here. It's appealing to the word Jewish, the fact that he's rejected Jewish, as putting him in a special group of people. He talks about being, I used to be a Zionist, with the same zealotry as an ex-smoker or an ex-carnivore, and therefore trying to claim a load of prestige off the back of that. Irrelevant to the argument, and of course never identifying the full nature of the terms that he's using and rejecting, so that it all ends up being a vague fog which can be manipulated to fit an argument both for and against, as and when he's making one. So all of that's in there. In terms of where you can find some of the stuff we do, second, the articles on Substack, including one I've written on the book sponsoring today's show, Jim Brown's A Black Hole in Economics. I've done a full review on that, and that's on the Substack and available for everybody to view. So if you want to check out what the book contains, please have a look at that. And of course, there's the Briefly Objective, the sister channel to this, with the short edited clips taken from this show with added visuals to really make the point for your social media feed. So please check that out, like and subscribe as well.
And I would just like to add a point that Ayn Rand, told us to use our mind to evaluate facts. So don't let you be gaslit by these people who use their PhD and they thesis and article in order to make you believe that Israel is on the side of the wrong argument. Because to be honest, all you need to do is go to Google or go onto the maps, have a look at Israel, have a look at Gaza, and ask yourself, where would you want to live and why?
Thank you, Daniel, for the super chat. Daniel says, thanks for the show, guys. Somebody, when I asked you guys if you have anything to promote, said don't promote drugs, which is weird because I've seen other comments from this guy, and I can't imagine you'd be worse than you are if you took drugs. But yeah, for that particular individual, I will say let's see you on drugs. Maybe the comments will improve. But that is also a joke in case anybody wants to report us to YouTube. Owen Jones, when he celebrated the murderer of the United Healthcare CEO, said something like, to YouTube, I'm not celebrating this, and then of course went on to celebrate this. In this case, I was actually joking. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We are back tomorrow with the Daily Objective and the reality show, where I believe we are talking about Anna Kasparian, a different type of unpleasant person, but that is the world we live in. Thanks. We'll see you then.